For me, the writing, the editing was the easy part. I wrote this on the weekends. I wrote this on a train. I wrote this in the evenings because I love writing. The hard part, and this is insane, when I hit the send button of my final draft, I expected champagne, balloons, a feeling. Instead, I wept like a baby for like 30 minutes, and then I went through a 3-month funk. And I discovered that there is the writer's equivalent of postpartum depression. And so it was very unsettling. And my poor wife, she said, "John, you're a hot mess." And it's like, well, that's part of the process, I guess.
Welcome to the Tech Pubcast, a behind-the-scenes look at what it really takes to write and publish a technical book. I'm your host, Jess Haberman, literary agent, publishing consultant, and former acquisitions editor with nearly 20 years of experience publishing books. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome John Wengler to the podcast. Hello, John. Want to share a brief introduction?
Thank you, Jess. Thanks for inviting me. I'm a person who loves writing. I wrote my first poem in 6th grade. I edited the high school yearbook. I got an engineering degree, but spent my time editing the campus engineering magazine. I went into urban planning, where I did several newsletters. Then I started a 30-year career in corporate governance, and during which I wrote my first book entitled Managing Energy Risk. So I always gravitated towards the policies, to the writing. That's it.
And congratulations on your newest book, Automate Excel with Python from No Starch. You want to tell us a little bit? Oh, and you've got it right there. Excellent. Can you tell us more about the project? Like what got you started on, this particular project?
Well, like a lot of people in corporate and office work, I was a lifelong Excel user. In fact, Excel lover. I mean, I had like favorite formulas. I mean, I'm a VLOOKUP guy in conditional format. I just love it. But slowly, data became more complex. The demands for automation became stronger. And I was hitting all those same constraints that so many people wind up hitting. And I was working for an employer, and they were about to spend $2 million on a piece of third-party software, and they asked me to evaluate it. And I reevaluated it, and then as just a throwaway comment at the end of my report, I said, "Look, just FYI, if I taught myself Python, I could probably replicate this within 3 months." And my boss called me into the office and said, "Okay, John, the committee has accepted your proposal." I said, "What proposal?" And so I had a choice. He goes, "Teach yourself Python." And so I started the process. I kept notes and realized, wait a minute, I got a book here. It'd be sort of like capturing the magic of learning how to ride a bike while riding the bike.
That's so great. I think that's such a common story I hear is folks are trying to learn how to do the thing and they've accumulated so much information in that process that they want to share that. They want to share that with someone else who wants to learn the same thing. So that's amazing. And John, you and I met at PyCon, was that last year?
Yeah, last year.
Last year at the Anaconda booth. And so it was great to kind of hear about your experience with Python and Anaconda there. But yeah, so what made you want to write this book? Like what kind of got you on the path to kind of figure out, okay, like now I'm going to put together a proposal or I'm going to, did you start with the proposal? Did you start actually writing the book? Like where did it begin for you?
I started writing the book as I was teaching myself Python because I was explaining to myself, I was sort of my first target reader. And then when it occurred to me that there could be somebody else, I imagined a target reader of this lonely worker at her desk in Des Moines, Iowa. She's desperate. How does she survive? And I started writing to her. And suddenly it became like, oh, what do you need to know? Well, you need to know the basics. You need to know how to read in Excel files. You need to learn to export them. And so it just became a project where once I got it done, I said, okay, now once I had it fleshed out, let's look for a publisher. And I sent out, I picked the top 10 publishers I wanted. And the funny thing was that the publisher at No Starch Press happened to open my email the exact day where Python and Excel was announced.
Wow.
So talk about fortuitous timing.
That's great. So did you reach out to multiple publishers, it sounds like, and then No
Yep.
Starch, yeah, it sort of worked out with them. So, what made you decide, "Oh, I wanna pursue a traditional publisher versus, potentially, like, self-publishing or going with an indie press or something like that?"
So this is a little, so I'm a little old fashioned in this regard. I feel that if I can convince a publisher that this is worth publishing, that is a leading indicator of whether a reader would consider it worth buying. So I still wrote the book because I loved it and I would have still done it. But if I could do that first hurdle, it meant a lot to me. And it turned out to be awesome because No Starch not only has the distribution relationships, they're the ones that are, Penguin Random House is our distributor. They have a much better chance of getting onto the bookshelves at Barnes and Noble, for example. Plus, this week was the official release date, and my ranking on Amazon just jumped up because of
Amazing.
the No Starch Press marketing. In fact, today I've got the trifecta. I'm the number one new release in data mining, spreadsheets, and Python programming. And I
Nice.
think
All
that
the
all
categories
had,
you really wanna be in.
yeah. And I think that's because of I had a big publisher behind me.
That's awesome. Yeah. So then kind of all right, so how far into the book were you when you talked to No Starch? And then did they have you kind of take a pause and put a proposal together? Or like how did you work with them at the early stages?
Well, I thought so I absolutely submitted a full proposal of
Hmm.
the whole marketing analysis. And I had three different publishers very interested. I mean, you literally have to write assuming someone's interested. Obviously, not everyone's interested. So I told in the proposal, I said, "Look, the book is done. Get the printers rolling." What a fool I was! The gap between your first draft that you think is wonderful and the layers of first we had a content editor, then we had a technical editor, then we had one more editorial editor. And the book itself is so much better because of it. But boy, it was a marathon. It was not the sprint I thought it would be.
Yeah, I that's a common misconception about how long it takes to get from I mean, it takes a long time to write a book and then to get from your first draft to a final draft and then for the production to have the printing to happen, which, it is frequently shipped on a boat from China to get here, like the whole process is at least a year, but commonly is up to 2 years. And sometimes longer for complicated books or very long books. I think you did the right thing in pitching multiple publishers. I see a lot of authors who don't do that, and they kind of go with whoever asks them first or whoever they talk to first. So what made No Starch Press feel like it was the right home for your book?
Again, it was just the fact that the two worlds of Python and Excel were merging together. I think gave it a sense of urgency. And I think it really appealed to them that I was talking about automation. And I think it also really helped. I mean, a technical publisher is a technical publisher. And I think it was appealing to them to broaden their audience to the folks may not buy a book on C programming, or in my case, even know what Rust is, and it sort of broadens their environment. And so I think that's went well. And so it worked out. It really just and plus, look at the really fun. They got this really fun robot,
They have a great brand. I love their
and
style. It's
and
really fun.
I think they did the book just to have the cool robot pushing the Gutenberg press.
That's great. It's a really good one. What would you say is like the hardest part about writing this particular book or about writing books in general?
For me, the writing, the editing was the easy part. I wrote this on the weekends. I wrote this on a train. I wrote this in the evenings because I write essays on the weekends just for myself. I've got a full disk full of essays that no one will ever read, but I still wrote them because I love writing. The hard part, and this is insane, when I hit the send button of my final draft, I expected champagne, balloons, a feeling. Instead, I wept like a baby for like 30 minutes. And then I went through a 3-month funk. And I
Mm.
discovered that there is the writer's equivalent of postpartum depression. And
Mhm.
so it was very unsettling. And so, my poor wife, she said, "John, you're a hot mess." And I was like, well, that's part of the process, I guess.
That's so interesting. I mean, I definitely understand the kind of feeling of like this is your baby and you're putting it out into the world and then suddenly when the book is complete, it's like you lose a lot of control over it. You're trusting a
Yeah.
publisher to take it and do the best, distribution, best marketing, best promotion, best, editing that they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And then it's like you don't get to really do a lot at that stage other than, promote it yourself. So I definitely understand that feeling of it, of the
But
grief of it being kind of over.
literally, the day the printer was going to start, the publisher calls me and says, "We're changing the title."
Oh boy.
And I freaked out. This is, like you say, this is my baby. That I've been living with this title in my head for so long. And of course I threw a tantrum because that's what writers do.
Yeah.
And it turns out the publisher was absolutely right. And so I got through it. We have a much better title now. And again, it's when you're an emotional person like myself, an emotional writer. Uh, Boy, it's hard when someone tries to move your cheese.
Yeah. So what was your original title?
It was so bad. I'm not even gonna tell you.
No, no
But they
worries.
changed the subtitle, original subtitle, which actually Amazon originally published, was a total beginner's guide to programming. But they changed it from that to from manual grind to one-click workflow.
Yeah.
Because what happened was that the day we were sending it to the printer was the exact same day that when Anthropic, remember how Anthropic released the model that crashed the market?
Mhm.
Suddenly it was like, oh my God, we have to make this better. We have to communicate to our readers that something like Python helps you work with AI. If AI is going to give you
Right.
their answers in Python code, then you need the digital literacy to meet the times.
Right.
And so it was a very exciting and terrifying moment, and I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, do you feel that way that like learning Python is just as valuable now as ever, or has it changed? Has the way you think you should learn Python has that evolved now with these sort of like AI tools?
It is absolutely evolved. When on that day, I felt very much like a telegrapher watching his very first telephone being installed. I was like, "Oh, well, I'm so glad I wrote the book, now no one's gonna buy it." But what I started experiencing was I would ask AI how to do something, it would give me an answer that worked, but I didn't know how it worked.
Hmm.
And so the fact that I had a little bit of coding knowledge allowed me to give them the prompts necessary to give me a properly commented code, a code that I could defend, and a code that I could update when the inevitable use case failure would come across my screen. So yeah, I think I think embrace AI, but you have to have the language. Just like I love France, right? I got to learn some French if I'm going to properly visit that country.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. Same. I get very nervous when I'm in a country and I don't know the language. Just very uncomfortable. But I also agree that, I took computer science. I didn't learn Python back then. It was Java and C++. But I did learn, enough Python to be somewhat literate, I think. And so I think it helps a lot as sort of now a marketing professional and like, and technical editor or agent, being able to understand concepts by like sort of seeing the overarching architecture of Python code, I think is super helpful to understand like if statements and loops and and just like and conditionals and things that are part of like any programming language. I think can like understanding like how a programmer like works and how they kind of solve problems and things, I
Yeah.
think is just such a useful skill. That is just as relevant today, with all these like AI tools, and AI can only do so much, and it makes mistakes. And like, I mean, we see every other day, like someone's, bad error that they vibe coded is like in production and crashes something, like, so we see the consequences of like not knowing Python well enough, or not knowing your
Yeah.
programming language well enough to kind of get in front of those issues. Not that you can't make mistakes with regular code that you coded yourself, but yeah, it is so interesting to hear about folks who are it's like AI first development, or AI native development, maybe, in terms of they're kind of creating the code with AI help rather than maybe from scratch. How did I'm not sure how much is code is in your book, but like how much did AI like help you sort of in any of the coding work or the formulas or anything like that?
I actually wrote the book. There's lots of examples, because the whole idea is because these poor my poor reader in Des Moines, Iowa, is all alone, and she needs to get an exception report out. So lots of examples. But it was written. This was the book was was written, or at least the first draft, before I even heard the word AI, or maybe I'm being a little facetious there. But the book certainly helped at the end when I was in crunch time. Oftentimes writers leave, the old 80-20 rule. You leave the 20% hardest thing to the end. Well, suddenly I found myself in conversation with AI to say, look, am I thinking about this right? What do you think? And we got some of the hardest things got done thanks to AI. And so it's very exciting that this book is coming out. This is perhaps a surfboard to help enjoy and survive the tsunami that we all now know is real.
That's great. Yeah. Um, so would you choose the same publishing path again? Sounds like it was a good experience for you. Everything kind of went according to plan. Your release so far, like there's good hype going. Like, would you say overall this was all pretty positive, or anything that I don't know, you would maybe do differently?
Well, one thing that yet another surprise is the last time I tried marketing a book or promoting a book, people were still getting hard copy newsletters in the snail mail.
Yeah.
So I have been scrambling to teach myself how to do what the kids call social marketing, social media marketing. I love what No Starch has done for me. What I didn't realize was that the rest was up to me. And now that we're involved, the publisher is involved, they give me advice, we're doing things. But I think I sort of spent a little bit more time than learning than I expected.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think that's pretty common among all the technical
Really,
publishers is
really,
like, yeah, I think this came up in another episode as well, but that the real value of a publisher is more so distribution than marketing.
yeah,
Like you mentioned, like they potentially get your book into Barnes and Noble, they get a digital
yeah,
copy out, and they have ebook in every format. They've got it, on all the like, bookshop.org and Amazon and all that.
right,
And also translations, they can
yeah,
get it international as well. So I think that's the real power of a traditional publisher. I've seen different publishers work a little differently in terms of marketing support, but I think they all do their best marketing when it is sort of taking advantage of the network that the author has,
right,
and helping them build that network.
right,
So you're doing exactly the right thing by joining the podcast. Like that's a great way to get word out about your book. And again, that's like taking advantage of your network. And I'm so glad that you reached out too. And So yeah, so podcasts are great. I have to remind authors a lot that like self promotion is really important, and I know some folks feel a little awkward about like hyping themselves up all the time or like talking about themselves all the time, but it is literally the best thing you can do to get your book noticed because like it's all about repetition. It's all about word of mouth. It's all about people being like, "Oh wow, I keep hearing about that book. Maybe I need to check it out." Or I keep hearing about this John Wengler guy, like maybe I should follow him on LinkedIn. So
Yep.
putting your opinions out there, like whether they're like related to your book or not, like just having a like, kind of a personality online is really good, is really helpful. I think that's really what's worked best for some of the folks who have done really well with book sales.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's like it's a challenge because like publishers have, they might have 40 to 100 books on their list every year.
Yeah.
So every book is not going to get individualized attention. There certainly are and I also came from like non-technical nonfiction publishing where they might even categorize different books as like an A title versus a B title. But if like your publisher isn't telling you yours is the hottest book we have on the list, we're going to
Yeah.
give you all of our attention. We're going to get it out there. We're going to do like all the bells and whistles. If they're
Yep.
not telling you that, like assume you're not at a title, assume you're not, top of their mind. They will let you know if you are.
I
So,
just for
go ahead.
for the record, I want to tell Emily and Jill, I love what you're doing. You've got a great marketing plan. Um, it's not their responsibility to turn me into a social media hound.
Right.
And
Right.
so I am now designing my very first YouTube video. Never done
Amazing.
that before.
Yeah.
I am planning a podcast. Perhaps you'd be a guest one day.
I'd love to.
This is all. I mean, an old dog can learn new tricks. Um, I didn't quite realize I was that old, and I didn't quite realize there were that many new tricks. So now I've got something to do on the weekends.
I love it. Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is like, I'm brand new to podcasting. I've done a lot of webinars in my day, but this is, I'm learning as I go. Shout out to Rachel Romeliotis, who like really got me on this path. Because like she has a really excellent podcast, as well with, Punch Tape. And, so I got started on Riverside. Riverside FM is a like really great like platform for launching a podcast and makes it super easy. So definitely recommend checking it
Oh,
out.
I'll make note.
Free plug for Riverside. But it's cool. It's a lot of fun. And once you kind of make it better every time you practice and like you kind of go from there. There's a lot of, especially where we're in this like, Gen AI age, like the expectations around video production have changed a lot, like the way that videos are edited, there's just a lot more just forgiveness for flubs and errors and or quick cuts and things like that. It's just it's video is just such a popular format that like it's just more is better. Also recommend folks who are doing video or podcasts like don't sweat the little flubs and things, like just like get your voice out there, get your face out there, because I think like video shorts in particular are
Yeah.
really popular. Even if you have like no network and like you're just getting started, like I threw a video, one of my first video shorts I threw up had over 1,000 views. Like, and I didn't like, I didn't do much to it. It just gets in the algorithm. So like
Yeah.
YouTube, for example, like I think really promotes the shorts. They want people to keep scrolling and staying on. So these short clips like really help.
Oh,
Back to writing.
yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone writing a book? Like, does it take what does it take to be a writer? Is it about your routine? Is it about your skill set? Is it about your personality? Like what do you think makes a good writer?
So definitely personality first. If you are, if the thought of writing it gives you the willies, maybe don't, right?
Yeah.
If you love it, then definitely do. Um, Also, figure out, for gosh goodness sake, have a conversation with your reader. pick your reader. I was very lucky. My first book was written for engineers who were suddenly responsible for risk management, a type of trading responsibility. My father was an engineer, so I wrote for my father. So pick one reader and have a conversation with them. Your reader will appreciate it because if they're in the room, it's easier to write. So pick a good writer, um, and just go for it.
Yeah, that's great advice, I think, to kind of really flush out a persona. And I think it's really important that, who you're writing for, you're like, they know that they have a problem, and they
Yeah.
may not know that your book will solve it, but they can get there's a path that like kind of brings them in. And that your book really should solve a problem for them, and you should know what problem it's solving. I think that's commonly like some folks have trouble because they're not solving a big enough problem, or they're not really solving the problem, or they don't know like what the problem is. So
Mhm.
yeah, but I think going through that kind of proposal process, and sort of doing your due diligence about how this fits in the market and who it's for, really helps you narrow that down and helps get you on the right path early on. So that's great. What's your next project? Are you planning another book next, or are you, just really going to focus on promotion for this book, or kind of what are you thinking?
Oh, sure would love a second edition when it's
Sure.
on offer. But uh, but as a writer, the fascinating one of the fascinating things about learning programming and doing this book was I discovered just how profoundly impacted I have been as an adult due to my dyslexia. Like I remember being as a kid, I was given a remedial education, and it's a well-known fact what a remarkable reader I am thanks to my elementary school. Turns out when you leave elementary school, you're still dyslexic.
Right.
There are still manifestations. And so that are fairly profound. And so I think I've already started research on a book I'm entitling The Adult Dyslexic to sort of say what happens after you leave school and how to have a happier career with this neurodiversity issue.
That sounds exciting. Well, I love it. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
How can folks find out more about you?
So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, you can just type in John Wengler, Wengler. Again, keep your eyes out for the fun looking robot. I also have a website, johnwengler.com, where you can download the files. A couple of files are referred to in the book, and where I'll be answering questions and helping people succeed in their journey. Since Python and Excel are perfect matches, how to make the relationship work.
That's amazing. Yeah, everyone, please go get yourself a copy of the book. I'll have a QR code on the screen shortly where you can scan and go get yourself a copy. But John, thanks so much for joining the podcast today. It was really a pleasure to talk to you again and learn more about the book. And hope folks tune in again for more conversations like this. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. And John, thanks again for joining the podcast today.
Well, right back at you, and thank you for a wonderful podcast series.
All right. Thanks so much.